What is ethical porn? I spoke to Barcelona-based indie adult filmmaker Erica Lust and porn performer Kali Sudra to find out. So Erica, what is ethical porn and what inspires you to make it?
I think that most people would think about how you treat performers as one of the main things in ethical porn. Importance of doing a proper casting process, of getting to know your performers. Who are they? What have they done before? What do they like? Who are they sexually? What's their sexual identity?
Yes, I love the work that Erica's doing in our industry. Like, I love that she gives it a feminine approach. I also love the fact, one of my favorite things about her, working with her, is the freedom to do what you want in sex.
Well, I think obviously that all porn should be ethical. It shouldn't even be a question. It should just be the way we are doing things. And sometimes when people have trouble to understand what am I talking about and what does this mean, I try to do a parallelism to another business, for example, talking about the food industry and, you know, ethical processing of food and production of food. And I think this helps people to understand what we are talking about. Another aspect that I think is sometimes totally forgotten by people is the consumer side. Honestly, going online to these tube sites that are pirating the videos and putting them up for free, many times using, you know, a language that is disrespectful towards women and towards certain ethnicities, and sometimes even homophobic or racist. I think that kind of consuming porn is not ethical either. Please care for the porn that you are watching. And one of the ways of doing that is to get it value and to pay for your porn. The adult industry is a huge industry, and there are many, many different players and companies and producers and directors. And obviously not everyone is following the same standards. So one of the things that we have done as a company to make it clearer for everyone is to write a kind of bill of rights for performers, so they receive this document beforehand a shooting with us, so they understand what rights do they have and what are we also expecting as a company of them. I think that the main concept here is really about how you are treating people.
In a lot of the films you make, you also make it a point to sort of showcase things that we don't usually see in porn. You know, I've seen the clips where one character talks about their asexual orientation, or, you know, somebody has vulvodynia.
Join us.
No, I can't.
But I'm irresistible.
I am asexual.
I've got vulvodynia. Penetration is painful.
You have a lot of representation around queer love, and I think we don't really see these things handled as sort of delicately and as compassionately as you do in your films. So can you talk a little bit about the intention behind that and your vision for your sort of inclusive portrayal of sexuality?
Sometimes we talk about porn and many people say, hey, porn is not really diverse, but actually that's not really true, because if you go to any of these tube sites, you will find people of all diversity that is possible. It's out there. But the problem is how they are representing us, how they are tokenizing us. It's the teens and the MILFs, and it's all the different kind of ethnicities, and the Latinas and the Asians and the blacks. And I think that what we really want to do is not tokenizing people, but giving people voice. That's the whole idea. It's having people involved in the process of making these films. People from different backgrounds who wants to tell their stories and their perspective and how they live their sexuality. That is one of the reasons why it has been so important for me to bring in more directors, new directors, and especially female voices. That I think is something that we have really missed in porn since the beginning, you know. There has been many different men out there telling stories about sexy women in different positions, you know, but not that many women telling stories from our point of view. So these are some of the reasons why, you know, I work with crews that are almost 85-90% female, why most of the guest directors that I invited to my projects are women, but also, as you said before, queer people. What I wanted to do, especially for Ex-Confessions, was bringing, you know, all these people together as a community and showing people that they can actually enjoy watching a sexuality that is different than how they define themselves. That is something that is enriching, that it's actually helping us to feel empathy for other people and to understand other people's sexuality.
I'm Kali Sudra, my pronouns are she, her. I've been a performer and sex worker now for about 4 years. Well, I was a sex worker before being a performer, and I'm an educator. I'm studying sexual education, and I've worked with Erika Last for 4 years. I started out as a performer, and then we really just kind of hit it off in the beginning, and then they invited me to be the talent manager at Lust for some time. I've kind of branched off and I've done other things like just directing. I directed my first film last year in the quarantine with my co-director Alej, and they were amazing, and we just did like kind of like an intimate portrait, so it was just a solo film. And now I've just helped written and direct The Sari Shop.
So beautiful.
Do you want to try it on?
I'd love to hear from both of you your thoughts on India as one of the world's largest consumers of porn.
You do have a substantial Indian audience, and that Kali is one of the favorite artists.
India is actually one of our fastest growing markets. And that's very interesting, because I think that tells us a little that I think that India is in a moment at this time where they are really discovering this kind of indie alternative, ethical, feminist, or whatever you want to call it, porn, but different porn from, you know, the typical kind of mainstream.
Talking about South Asian audiences, I often get a lot of people in my inbox like asking me where I'm from, and like being like really like fixated on that, because like, I mean, sometimes it can be really actually quite tiring, because that's like what I've lived my whole entire life, and it's like people just want to know what kind of brown I am, so they ask me, where are you from, where are you really from, you know, all the time. But also at the same time, I see it as they're asking where I'm from because they also want to kind of like connect and find somebody that like they can relate to. And I think it's because like people just want to see themselves represented. A lot of Indians have reached out and like really excited to have like an Indian performer on screen. A lot of queer South Asians have written to me.
Kali came up with the idea of the sari shop.
All my experiences being in a sari shop, and like kind of it's like comedic, you know, all of these like I had like some references of like some women going in together to buy some saris and asking this man, okay, I want this one, no, take out this one, I want to try this one, I want to see this one, and they ask for all the saris, and then at the end they're like, actually, you know, I'm not going to go with any of them. And I just like loved it so much, like how like I'm not, maybe not that big of a diva, but I love that, like, you know, that kind of that energy. And it was really funny after. Also, I loved watching because there was like a lot of men when I was in India working in sari shops, and they would all like sit around after, and then they would just be chatting about life and folding saris like it was like, you know, nothing, you know. And I really liked that kind of that image. I always like those images that kind of like stayed like really like in my head. Also during that whole process of making this movie, going on the wardrobe outings and stuff like that, I actually ended up having like a real life encounter. Not that didn't end in sex, okay, but with the most beautiful man ever in this like sari shop.
Some people here might not realize that there are sari shops in Barcelona.
Yes. No, in Raval, there's like a really big South Asian community in Raval. I mean, so Raval, there's like a mixture of all different kind of communities, but there's a big South Asian community in Raval. There's lots of sari shops there, or like just like South Asian dress. It's not just saris. Also, I think it was really important that the first movie that we made that was like South Asian themed, that we're not like light-skinned South Asians, which is like a lot of representation in Bollywood, and there's a lot of colorism in India that it like, you know, people that are probably watching this right now that are probably like angry with me, but it's so true. There's so much colorism in India, which is a really big deal that we need to talk about.
And what do you wish people understood better about sex work?
I really wish that people understood that it's just a job like any other job. We deserve rights, we deserve respect, we deserve recognition, to be compensated, we deserve a safe working environment, and we deserve that people don't conflate sex work with sex trafficking, which are two separate things. That sex workers deserve respect, that we aren't dirty or disgusting people like at all. That's like kind of the opposite, you know, like sex workers are the most magical people that I know. They're very healing and wonderful. I formed a syndicate here in Spain, like a union of sex workers, and the Supreme Court said that we were illegal, and we've just got the ruling back after 2 years, and we are completely legal as a union of sex workers now, and have a really big thing to celebrate in terms of
Congratulations.
I find it very frustrating now that a lot of Western narratives about like, you know, sexual liberation and sexual empowerment was born out of the West, when it wasn't. The idea that that Indians or South Asians are super sexually like regressive. Yes, there's to a certain extent, yes, there's a lot of repression in India around sexuality, but we have to look at the root cause of why, and that's mainly because, I mean, colonization and this kind of like Victorian standard of what sexuality should have been, you know, like between a man and a woman only within inside of marriage. Anything outside of that was punished. So if you were trans, if you were non-binary, if you were gender fluid, if you were gay, if you were lesbian, or if you had more than one partner, all of that was punished after the colonial rule. And now we have so internalized a lot of these dialogues, these Western dialogues, these British dialogues of what sexuality has to be, that it's like it's ingrained in Indian culture now. And it's now our work to do to unlearn all of that we've learned over centuries, really. And I know it's a lot to start with. We also have to recognize like the trauma that we've lived collectively as BIPOC, as Black, Indigenous people of color, you know, around the world. The trauma that we've lived through colonialism and how that impacts our sexuality. And I think that's where we should start in terms of you know, opening up the conversation about sexuality.
I really enjoyed this conversation with Erica and Kali, and I hope it made you realize just how important it is to be mindful of what you consume, even when it comes to porn. Here are a few key takeaways. Be willing to pay for your porn. Celebrate the perspectives of women and queer folk. Respect sex workers. And let's decolonize our sexuality. You can follow Erica and Kali and check out the sari shop if you'd like. I'll see you soon.